Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Saturday edition of Sidelines. We have a big show in line. Already had one casualty. Mitch Davis down for the count. I don't know if he got food poisoning or the Kentucky Blues, but he'll be out today. We'll be hopefully getting back on Monday because he's been with us the last 3 days covering the SEC basketball tournament up in Nashville. But I'll say this, man, there's these games in the SEC tournament, they've been really, really good. Frank Duffy is on with us right now down in New Orleans, where they celebrate St. Patrick's Day on the Saturday before the holiday. A good thing to do, although coinciding with daylight savings time, spring forward, a lot of hungover Irishmen and wannabe Irishmen down in the quarter, not going to be able to get that extra sleep. But, of course, nothing cures a hangover more quickly than an early morning swim of a couple of miles or a run. It's just the way it works. But Dave Tompkins also will join us, formerly of Churchill Downs up in Louisville. We're going to talk a little about the Derby that is coming up very soon. So we'll have a lot of fun conversation with him. Second segment, Coach Butch Thompson calls in on StreamYard, as he does most Saturdays during baseball season. So fortunate to have him take his time to share with us college baseball underway. This is the last weekend of non-SEC competition. Next weekend, St. Patrick's Day is when it starts. Couple that with the fact March Madness gets underway on Thursday, the 16th. That's going to be some, let's just say, an LOP, lack of production, in a lot of offices around the country. My recommendation is work ahead, get ahead. The tournament is upon us. Hour number 2, Kevin Scarbinsky, the great writer, Birmingham News, the Birmingham Lead, and also CoachSafely.org will check in with us. We're here 6 days a week, folks. We talk about sports. We're a sports radio show and podcast. That's what we do. That's who we are. We don't tell you how to think, but free speech is alive and well here today, as it is on every edition of Sidelines. The First Amendment. We're not afraid to say what we think. If we feel something is wrong or right, we're going to talk about it on sports. We get the best guest. That's what we do. Follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live. And let me say something again about one of our new sponsors that just joined the team, Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Just some bullet points to keep in mind. Eleanor is a 4th-generation Memphis residential realtor, 3rd-generation Hobson realtor, top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in 2022. If you live in Memphis, you're looking to move, buy another house, you're moving to Memphis. We have listeners all over. But thank you so much, all of you that listen. Call Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty. Hyperlink is going up. Eleanor and Barry, they're on spring break this week, but we'll be getting that up. You will be introduced to her. She'll be on the show in a couple of weeks. We'll introduce her to you. You're going to want to get to know her. She and her team will find you what you're looking for. It's a turnkey operation. Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty in Memphis. She is a rock star. She is the realtor of Sidelines. Frank Duffy, Dave Tompkins. Could you imagine, Dave, if we had down in the quarter horses? And look at Frank.
You will soon.
Yes, we will soon. Yeah, but hey, look, right in the middle of all this college basketball, this is a great time of year, isn't it? I mean, you've got the Derby coming up, the Masters coming up. You've got all the college basketball tournament, college baseball, spring practice, softball. I mean, pretty soon, we'll have Memphis in May Barbecue Fest, as long as Carol Coletta says it's okay. Down on the river. But man, that is one of the great gatherings. As my dad says, boy, you will only see people at the Barbecue Fest, the Mid-South Fair, and the Army. There's only 3 places you'll see people like I saw. He goes, I had a guy in my platoon at Fort Stewart who was 20 years old and had never been to the dentist. Wow. With that said, that's why they call it a toothbrush. I'll just leave it at that. Dave Tompkins.
Hello, sir.
West Point graduate. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Coming live from Beaufort, South Carolina, Marine Corps country, just a few miles north of Paris Island, and our favorite Gunnery Sergeant Hartman.
I am Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. I will not speak. I will not laugh. I will not cry.
Hoorah!
Today is Christmas.
Yeah, Gunnery Sergeant. Nothing
Beautiful
was better
city,
than today is Christmas. At 0800, Chaplain Charlie will tell you how God and the Marines will conquer the world. Until then, you will obey my orders. God was here first. And I'll just leave it at that. So, real quick one, Dave.
But your belongs to the Corps.
yes, sir. Beep, beep, beep. No, we have had a couple of bombs dropped on the show by some former coaches and some of our regular team members, and thank God for the buttons. But Dave, one question: Beaufort, South Carolina, in the Low Country.
Love it.
That's where the Shamrocks are, aren't they? One of the fighter squadrons of the Marine Corps F-18s.
Absolutely, they fly over my house pretty much every day. It's the sound of freedom.
Well, let me just say this: being that it, look at Frank, brother Frank, over with his suit on at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New Orleans. The Shamrocks should fly wherever there's a St. Patrick's Day Parade. Are they going to be? I wonder if they're going to be making it to New Orleans. Frank,
let me tell you, Rob. I think we might need some air cover just to get down to the starts of the parade. I've got my Kevlar Shamrock on just in case.
Well, just so long as there's no shenanigans or tomfoolery going on down there. I love it.
No shenanigans.
Yes, no shenanigans. Dave, look, let's talk about what's happening right now. We've got listeners. We're heavy in the SEC footprint. We're growing because we get great guests like you on here. Let's talk a little, because I know Frank owns horses. He and his partners. The Derby is upon us. Kind of lay the groundwork for what's happening up there in horse country, because like the Masters, they don't get out the lawnmower and start cutting the grass the week before. This is a year-round passion to make the Kentucky Derby happen. So kind of walk us through where we are now and how we're going to get where we are. And we'll get you back on before the Derby again too.
Absolutely. Well, it really starts to heat up now, really this weekend. And it has a, kind of a symbiotic relationship with the SEC basketball tournament, because obviously Kentucky is, a prominent school right, down the road in Lexington. U of L, not in the SEC, obviously, but they're normally good. They're not any good this year, but they're normally prominent. So folks in Louisville are just so excited about basketball with March Madness coming up, knowing that on the other side of that is the Masters, and then the horses are racing in Lexington at Keeneland during the month of April. And we should talk more about Keeneland as part of this. And then as soon as Keeneland's over, it's Derby week. And so I don't know of any place in the world one would rather be than to be in Louisville right now through the Derby over the next 6 weeks. I mean, it is just magical.
Well, let me say this. Who makes more money up there? The people selling bourbon or the people selling those big hats? I mean, that is.
I think the ticket brokers make the most money.
Yeah, that's right. Frank, there's no stress involved in owning a horse that you're trying to get to the Derby. No pressure, is there?
Hey, well, let me tell you something. You can only dream of making it to the Derby of the Oaks. And look, my buddy did. Tom Amos, who was the trainer of Serengeti Empress three years ago, the year right before everything, went crazy with COVID, he actually won the Oaks, which is just an incredible thing to be able to do. It's such a rarity to get to that point. It's like saying my kid's going to make the NBA, or my kid's going to be in the NFL. It's just a rare thing. There's so many horses that are that are foaled, every year. And it's got to be 100, 125, 150,000 horses, depending on the year. and you're only going to get a field of about 20 in the Derby, and you might get a field of about 13 to 15 in the Oaks.
14 in the Oaks, yep.
It's such a rare, occurrence. But man, for those that have the horse, and Dave will tell you this, you kind of know what leading up, because there's a point system. I mean, to get into those two iconic races, the best in the world for fillies and the best in the world for the Colts or fillies. Fillies can also be in the Derby. You got to have a point system, and that's what they're doing right now. That's what they're saying.
You got a big race today in Tampa. You got the Tampa Bay Derby today. Then you got right where you are in 2 weeks. You got the Louisiana Derby in Fairgrounds, where they'll run the race there, and then they'll get ready for Jazz Fest, which is the week before and the week of the Derby. I mean, it's so soon. I've even stepped in horse shit during the Jazz Fest. So yeah, it's very quick.
well, let me just say this. But anyway, the number of horses that compete, I mean, on a national, it's an international group. Any horse, I mean, you have sheiks coming from the Middle East. You have people coming from all over. At
Japan, Europe.
Okay, so it's ginormous, as my kids say. Dave, how many horses are at the starting line? Is it 16 or 20 at the Derby?
It's typically 20 at the Derby. Sometimes you'll have a day of race scratch and it's 19, but it's typically 20. And what makes that particularly different and difficult for the race is you've got. First off, there's no race in the world with 20 horses. So these horses are running, in race conditions, as they call them, for the first and the only time in their racing career is that. Add to that the 160, 170,000 people that are at the track, how loud it is. And the horses on the outside are basically running a race that's going to be 10% longer in distance than the horse on the rail. So there's just so many factors that go into that race, making it hard to handicap, hard to predict. That's why you have, like last year, you had an out of nowhere, long shot win. And it's one of the 15,000 things that make Derby Day and that race so just special, so ginormously special.
That's how I mine that bird at 50-1 with Calvin Bow Rail on him, shoots in and destroys our $45,000 super. Like, where did he come from? And that's what the Derby is. It's how you make that trip around. That's where the jockeys really earn their pay. Yeah, a jockey, his talent determines who wins a 6 furlong race, at the track in Nebraska. But
Aqueduct, yeah,
correct. But in the Derby, that's where they earn their pay, because Rob, you're circumventing 20, 22, 23 other horses. Back in the old days, you'd even have to come in from an auxiliary, gate that you'd come in. So you even started further out. You start adding on tractor, width. It's hard for a horse to come in and make it. And look, you got that very big, long stretch coming down out of the chute. That's jockeying position, and that's just the start. You're whipping around that first turn where the new grandstand is, and then you get on the back stretch, and most times. Like Dave and I were, talking the other day, a lot of times if you're on that first turn and you're taking a picture, you might take a picture and the winner of the race is 15 horses back. And you take the snapshot like, wait a minute, he won the race? And then you go back and dissect it. And, that's the cool thing about horse racing. It's the strategy and the tactics that go in, but it's life under fire, man. What's the old saying, Rob? The battle plans go out the window when the first bullet whizzes past your ear. That's exactly what it's like racing in the Derby.
Yeah, you can plan all day long until the real stuff starts happening. Well, here's an interesting thing. Dave Cody sent this to me, listening out in Bellingham, Washington. He said horses at Axarben, Nebraska, spelled backwards, was the most corrupt horse track in the country, so it closed. Nebraska trained Ferdinand won the Derby in the Preakness, but lost the Belmont with a huge viewing party at Axarben. Are you familiar with Axarben, either of y'all?
Yeah. That's why I said it was one of the most obscure tracks out in Nebraska. But I will argue that Delta Downs and Evangeline's Downs down in Cajun country are by far the more crooked tracks.
Oh, come on, Frank.
The Busch, and I mean that is some. I mean, you think Tiger Stadium is a freak show? Go to the Busch tracks and down in Louisiana. I'll tell you what, that's something there. That's where Calvin Burrell. That's
right.
How he learned to race.
Hey, Sylvester Carmouche, who hit in a fog bank. As the horses went by, he stopped and waited for the horses to come back around, and he won the damn race. And he was in a winner's circle, and they said, "Why is your horse not sweaty?" Everybody, all the horses are lathered up and all sweating. He had a fresh horse. He stood in a fog bank and waited for him to come around again, and it jumped in like he was in a race all the time. I'm telling you, some crazy stuff goes on down there. Hey,
we all know about the sun in the western sky, and it's Saturday night and Death Valley, but Saturday night at the Busch tracks is something else too.
Hey, my buddy Dan Bournet has to come up with a saying for that one too.
Well, guys, we're about to take a break and got some questions when we come back. But I think about this Southland Greyhound track. Now they got a giant casino right there in West Memphis, across the river from Memphis, and at 4:00 in the morning, it is absolutely jam packed. But December 31st, flags were at half staff as they no longer have the Greyhound racing the dogs at the park. And the most often heard battle cry of someone there in the kennel club or in the stands was, "Get up, foe! Get up, foe!" Those dogs, I mean, Rusty the Rabbit. They would take off after
Rusty
him.
the Rabbit.
And
here comes Swifty.
Here comes Rusty. But you got to love competition of wild animals. This is what they're here to do, is to race and compete. Be right back. Dave Tompkins, the shenanigan man, Frank Duffy, right after this on side.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
But here's a question for Dave Tompkins. You having been at Churchill Downs for many years, it comes from the ghost of Ronnie Van Zant. Said other
Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah, he says other than the playing of My Old Kentucky Home, which is just absolutely chilling to hear, is the most oft requested song from the 170,000 plus, and I will quote him, "Y'all play some Skinnerd." Yes or no? Simple yes or no.
Hey Rob, there are two moments at Kentucky when you're in the stands, when you're in the clubhouse or in the gallery, the grandstand, that your blood just absolutely flows through your veins like a raging river. And that is when they let those horses go and you hear those bells ring and they're off, you think your heart's going to pop out of your chest. But also when they play My Old Kentucky Home, and I love it. And Dave, you can speak to this, the pride that Kentuckians have when that song is played at their place with all the visitors that are in town. And Kentucky does a wonderful job. They're very hospitable. Every time we go, it's just a wonderful, well, I say weekend. It really kind of starts on Tuesday. But just a wonderful example of hospitality. and they are so proud of that state when they play my Kentucky home.
Well, yeah, and we have obviously we have a national tradition of playing our national anthem, and we all know that, and it's ingrained in our DNA from when we're babies.
Yeah.
The same is true in the Commonwealth of Kentucky with my old Kentucky home. Every event you go to, whether it's a sporting event, entertainment event, that song is played, and you reverentially stand at attention and you sing it, and it's part of the whole deal. The whole world, learns about it during the Derby, but that is a 24/7 365 song for the Commonwealth, and one of the things I just absolutely love about the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Well, it's the theme as Maury Gaston has given us in Robert Durham and John Hearn, history, traditions, and heroes. That's what we focus on.
Maury Gaston likes tradition and history.
A little bit.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, Marty said we get to go to his fire pit. I said we grab the bourbon that we were talking about earlier and get over there.
I couldn't find my Sigma Nu pen for today's show. I shame on me.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you something, and Maury's right. I mean, he's listening to this thing right now. It's a good point. A fire pit conversation talking about the Kentucky Derby and sports, as Frank says. The stories about the track down there in Louisiana and Axarben, whatever, Nebraska spelled backwards. But the cool thing about the horse racing is, and I guess people don't think about it, there are a bunch of races the day of the Derby before the actual Derby. But
great card.
So often there are two sporting events that
I
Southern
think it's
coaches
on the card on Derby Day, if I recall correctly.
And Southern football coaches are often quick to compare, and they have a lot of parables about the Derby. Like, hey, you got to put those blinders on when you're at the starting line of the Kentucky Derby. And, people talk about, well, you can't race the dogs. You can't race these horses and all. It's cruel, whatever. You talk about a love affair. What the owners and the trainers of the people, you talk about sacred vow of trust, like veterinarians. When I go down to Auburn and I see the equine center there at the Auburn Vet School, and obviously Kentucky and Auburn have quite a relationship because that's Kentucky's vet school. These people, it is reverence of these horses, and just like there is also a giant statue out in front of the vet school at Auburn of all the service dogs that have been killed in combat. But talk about that, Dave. What it means to these people. These horses are treated. You can't get treated better.
A couple things. First off, with statues. When you go to Churchill Downs, there are two statues that are really, really important. One is Barbaro, and unfortunately, Barbaro won the Derby in 2006, and then hurt himself in the Preakness 2 weeks later, and ultimately had to be put down about 6 or 7 months after that, after fighting a very, very courageous valiant battle, and captured the hearts of the world in his battle. So that's an important thing to see when you're there. There's another statue there of the greatest storyteller of Kentucky Derby, a wonderful man I knew well named John Asher. And John was the vice president in charge of media communications for many years there. And not only about the Kentucky Derby, but about horse racing. He is a storyteller without peer, and learn about him. And then when you're there for, whether you're there just for a normal day of races or you're there during Derby week, go to the backside, go to the other side of the track where you see all of what really happens, with horse racing, and the jockeys and the owners and the trainers, and you see the love. And yes, there is the inevitability of a horse getting injured and having to be put down. And gosh, when I was there, 8 Bells had to be put down. The year the Big Browne won, she had to be put down right there on the track. It was horrific. But there's, like every story, there's two sides. And when you go to the other side of the track, you see the other side, which is just pure love. And
these animals are treated like kings and queens. They really are.
Yeah.
And Dave, the morning is my favorite time at the track. You know, when I go to see Tom and watch him work our horses in the morning, I mean, that to me is the fun part of the track. It's grabbing a coffee and watching the workout guys get out there and work on, you know, Rob, they'll like blow the horn, and then you'll have a big group of horses come out and work out, and you know the slower horses will be toward the outside. The faster horses who are doing what's called breezing will be in on the inside. The care, the manicuring. I mean, their stalls look like they're as comfortable as the Ritz-Carlton. I mean, they're fluffed. They've got the shavings. Yeah, nothing is worse than when you see a horse go down. In fact, Dave, I was at Keeneland a couple of years ago. A fun day. First race, 2 horses went down, and it rips your heart out. It does.
Oh, it does.
But you and sadly on the second race, and I made eye contact with this particular. I'll never forget. Number 8, beautiful horse, had the pink saddle cloth. It was this magnificent horse. We locked eyes in the. And by the way, the paddock area at Keeneland is one of the coolest. It's underneath those trees, the canopy of trees. That and Saratoga, in my opinion, are the best paddocks in the game. But, you know, locking eyes with this horse, and this horse went down. It rips your heart out. But you got to remember, Rob, these horses were bred for this. This is their life. And look, there's not 125,000 of these animals. These are expensive animals. There's not 125,000 of them for 10 of them to go down. You know, so you have to look at the big picture. And look, like our horses, when they come off the track, well, we're fortunate we got a little mama, a broodmare that's now about to drop her 3rd foal for us, and our first filly's getting ready. You know, she's already in training right now. She's getting green broke, but she'll be racing in January. But let me tell you something: you get these horses when they come off the track, they're also treated like kings. If you're with the right owners, you got to be with the right owners and the right group. And we love our horses. We'll put them out. You know, that's why we got pastures in Louisiana. Let them go out there and eat some grass.
And if you want to see one of the most beautiful things in nature, go to Kentucky or anywhere where horses are bred and watch the birth of a horse. It is truly. I'll tear up if I talk any more about it. I mean, it is just it's amazing. It's proof there is a God.
There it is. I mean, and like I said, anytime I get to go to the vet school at Auburn, there's a lot of mention about horse racing. And you go to the equine center out there, and they have doctors that specialize in treating cancer with horses and all. And a horse can live, Dave, 35 plus years. And, you know, and I know I'm into competing with dogs, and I've done a lot of hunt tests and the trials and all over the years, the Mid-South Hunting Retriever Club with the Labrador Retrievers and all. And, oh, my God, I mean, I can't even tell you what it's like when a dog, you know, dies. And just I've had them live to be 15 and a half. I've lost them at 10 and a half. And it hits like getting hit in the face with a baseball bat. And
they're treated like rock stars out there, Rob. I mean, look at Big Red. Look at Secretariat, lived a long age. And look, he had a huge heart. So I mean, these horses are cared for. Claiborne, Dave, talk to Rob about those farms. They're incredible.
Yeah, they're obviously they're almost like a perfect combination of for-profit and non-profit, because they're business enterprises. I mean, but they're run like a non-profit in that the basis is love. And, you know, and yes, you want to get a horse to the Derby, you want to get a horse to win, but there's so many stables out there where it's just, you're just raising horses, and that's just, it's for the love. I mean, just the romance of, and I'm a amateur storyteller myself and like to write and stuff. And that's, I mean, just the romance in Kentucky and the love affair with the horses, and, you know, and all the folks show up 1 week for the Derby, but you know, if you ever could take a year off, and go live in the state of Kentucky, Commonwealth of Kentucky, and just immerse yourself in the horse culture there. It is, I don't know of anything in the United States more unique than that.
Yeah, you watch a wobbly knee colt get dropped on a frosty February morning. Your life changes.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know what, Dave, we got to do this again. We're about out of time, but stay on with us if you can. We're going to have Auburn baseball coach Butch Thompson talking some SEC baseball, college baseball. But you're right, and when you go down to and you see the horses like in Memphis where we live, Germantown and all. My mother's childhood friend Eleanor Woodward, they still have horses. I mean, you go out in Germantown, there are horses everywhere. Collierville, one of our sponsors, Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee.
Murfreesboro, Franklin, big
yeah,
Murfreesboro, exactly. Wow.
Oh my God, Franklin, Tennessee.
Yep.
Yeah. So you know what? If there's something wrong with the country. Remember Full Metal Jacket? They're interviewing Cowboy, and they said the BBC reporter said, "What do you think about Vietnam?" He goes, "Well, I don't know." He goes, "I mean, I don't have horses here." He goes, what do you say about a country that doesn't have horses? So, I mean, but Dave, look, I know we hit you. We had to move you up a little bit because Mitch Davis went down for the count up there in Nashville. But,
fun night on Broadway.
Yeah. But I think
Dave, don't forget, I got that extra seat in our box. We got 5 going in a 6-person box. All you gotta do is come on down, hang with us. You know what?
All right. I like I said the other day, I'm taking it under advisement. That'd be fun.
Hey, Dave, I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you after the show, but let's get you back on here again in the next few weeks talking about the Kentucky Derby. But I got to say this is great stuff because I want to hear some John Forney stories next time from Bromberg Jewelers, proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
It'll be Alabama's ball, 1st and 10 at the 35-yard line. Here is Stedman Seeley.
It's right on there, Coach Bryant. Wonderful ball game today. Tide wins the 20th national championship in the last 5 years.
Doug Layton, what do you have to say about that, sir?
All right. Hey, I'll talk to you after the show. Let's do this again in a couple of weeks. Absolutely solid gold from Beaufort, South Carolina. Former head Churchill Downs, the Kentucky Derby, Dave Tompkins. Thanks so much for your time.
Y'all be well. Great seeing you.
All righty. I'm going to tell you what, I'm fired up now. Hey, we got Butch Thompson on the show with us. Kevin Scarbinsky's coming on here with us. We're going to have a round table, and we want to talk Kevin Scarbinsky, Coach Butch Thompson of Auburn, Frank Duffy down at the St. Patrick's Day in New Orleans. We've been talking with Dave Tompkins, former head of Churchill Downs for a long time up at the Kentucky Derby. There's a lot going on right now. And Butch, wanted to talk to you. Kevin, I'm a huge fan of his. I've always followed his writing, but what he does with coachsafely.org, in youth sports and in all sports levels, the growth of any sport depends on, I think, more than anything else, because I know my mom, she was the one taking me to practices and lessons and everything like that. We've got football, was in trouble there a few years ago, but not in Alabama. And where did coachsafely.org start? It started in Alabama. But, Coach, talk about, if you can, where the importance of having people at practices and that know what's going on about the safety, because a lack of education can discourage people from playing to begin with.
Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great. Connectivity. We had a
Coach, coming back to us. Hopefully he's going to be back with us. But Kevin, okay, Coach, there you are. You're back.
Yep. I was going to give one example of Anthony Sanderson, our trainer. Whenever we do something at baseball camp or a game, and you have the community and you have kind of systems in place and connectivity, we were pulling a tarp a few years ago, probably 3 years ago, and one of our workers absolutely had a heart event. And the defibrillator that's right there, that's in every one of our venues around campus, was put into action by our trainer and saved a life. The helicopter lands, on the baseball field, and a life is saved. And so everything that's happened, if those protocols are not in place, we don't believe our good friend Les would be with us today. And that's an example every day as I see him, and I'm able to give him a fist bump every day of somebody cared enough, somebody outlined this stuff and put it into practice. So, our student athletes, our workers, our employees, really our fans, everybody that takes in and digests anything around, I think the Southeastern Conference does an amazing job. But that's one example here of where you can make a difference by having systems, connectivity, action plans. And when something happens, if you don't know what's going on, it's too late. And I saw that firsthand. And that's an amazing example of people doing the right thing.
Kevin, are you familiar with that story? That you talk a lot about having the equipment on site, but that saved a life.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. And Butch, that's a great example of having trained personnel there who know what to do in an emergency. But at the youth level, and we're talking, kids 14 and under, before they start school ball, they're playing in their community parks. They may be playing travel ball.
Kevin, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick break because I want to get into this because I'm getting a lot of people wanting to know when the next dinner for Coach Safely is, but also we got 28% of our listeners are women. We're going to be right back with this discussion on Sidelines. All right, Kevin, you were talking about a lot before the break. Let's keep going with this.
Yes, and the issue at the youth level is the coaches who are typically volunteer moms and dads, like I was when I coached my sons for about 10 years in baseball and basketball, is that they're not necessarily trained to know what to do in an emergency. If there perhaps is a sudden cardiac arrest event, a potential concussion, the issue of overuse injuries, all of these things that you have to deal with from a player safety standpoint. Well, those injuries, those potential life-threatening situations exist at the youth level also. And that's why Coach Jack Crow and Dr. James Andrews originally came up with the idea for Coach Safely. That one way that we could mitigate the number of injuries at the youth sports level and keep those boys and girls playing, which is what we all want. We all know the value of sports at every level when it's done right. But we want to give them the knowledge that they need so they can, first of all, prevent injuries if possible. That's what the goal for everyone. But when they happen, and they're going to happen, have someone who has a baseline of knowledge on what to do in those situations. And that's what Coach Safely does. Again, training coaches, providing an online course, has 9 different subjects, 11 different video modules. And the great thing is in the state of Alabama, if you take that course, it doesn't cost you a dime. Thanks to the generosity of a lot of donors, as well as the state of Alabama. We are in the state of Alabama budget.
Wow. And
so they contribute to the mission of Coach Safely. And I'll give you some really encouraging news, and this is not breaking news, but close. This week or last week now, the state of Georgia passed, the state Senate in Georgia passed not a mandate as we have here in Alabama, the Coach Safely Act, but a resolution encouraging youth coaches to get trained. We've got 3 other states in the SEC footprint right now, Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee, that have legislation in the pipeline to I think mandate that their youth coaches be trained every year in a comprehensive course of injury recognition and prevention. So we are gaining momentum outside of the state of Alabama, and that's Coach Crow's vision. That's Dr. Andrews' vision to, again, keep these young people as safe as possible while they're competing. That way parents will be reassured. As you said, Rob, a lot of moms are concerned about sports injuries, as they should be. So you can have some confidence that your son or daughter's coach has taken this course and has been certified with a baseline knowledge, again, of injury recognition and prevention.
Yeah. Coach Thompson, along the line of what Kevin's saying, and I went to that Coach Safely dinner back in Birmingham in Vestavia in late August. When you're out recruiting baseball players, I mean, you've got guys on your roster from what, 15 states?
At least. I do know we got them from Seattle, Washington to Puerto Rico. I do know that, and everywhere in between on this year's roster.
I mean, so let me ask you this. When you go out and recruit, and you're from Amory, Mississippi, you're recruiting people from everywhere. You've got a calm demeanor, but again, you're intense. But how much question and answer time do you spend with the moms when you're recruiting the kids? Because I mean, let's be honest. I quote my friend Fran Cunningham's late mother. She had 6 boys: Jim, Mike, Mark, Bob, John, Fran. And one time he said, Browne, the woman has witnessed no less than 2,000 baseball games in person. So they play a big role, and women are bigger sports fans than you want to give them credit for, aren't they?
Well, they care about their baby. And, I'm 52 years old, and when I talk to my mom every day, I try to talk to my mother every day. I'm still her baby. And what I've learned through recruiting is I'll see a dad and a son come in for a visit. We'll talk baseball. They'll ask baseball questions and what do you think on approach, or how should you do this or that? And they leave and they wind up going somewhere else. And what I've seen through the years is if mom's on that trip and you start talking about the dorms and the academics and how you're going to feed my boy, and the moms are the rock star. If you really want to acquire talent and skill, the mom's the way to go. So the mom is the connection that makes it happen. You talk a lot of baseball with the guys, but making mom at peace, how you're going to develop her baby, but more importantly, how you're going to take care of her baby day in and day out. There's the recruiting prowess that needs to be paid attention to. The moms are special.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Frank, along those lines, you think about it. If you can get to the mother, because that's who's taking them to practice and all, and like Kevin said and Coach says, the safety part of it. I mean, because a lack of education will discourage people from more than anything, injuries aside, from playing sports, won't they?
No doubt. And I'll tell you what, you talk about moms. I can almost envision every time my mom went to my games and watched me catch. And let me tell you something. If she wasn't one of them hovering moms that would try to inject on what the coach should tell me or when I should play or not play, she would say, you better listen to that coach, young man. She goes, that's the only person that's out here in charge of you, and you better be respectful and you better be polite. So, no, what you learn on the ball field, Coach will tell you, Kevin will tell you, he's coached his sons. Man, that's such life lessons, that you learn at 6 years old on up to Babe Ruth or American Legion ball. Those are lessons that stay with you for a lifetime. And, Coach, you obviously get them once they get to college, and and those lessons never stop, do they?
Coach, I think Frank's dead right, isn't he?
Dead on. And, you're recruiting families, and somebody has raised a family, the greatest gift that God's ever given them for 17, 18 years. And then you're going to let them go somewhere else. And a lot of the guys that we recruit, let's face it, they're coming to the Southeastern Conference. So we're not their only option. They have enough skill set that it's been recognized and they have options. So really what a family, at the end of the day, most good families, and at the end of the day, we get who we are, not always who we want. So we have a certain identity now that we've been in place for a certain period of time that either a mother or father or a student athlete, recognizes what we look like, how we operate, and who we are. And they either want to be a part of that or not. But everybody thinks this is, hey, you're missing a shortstop next year, so I can come in and be the starting shortstop. All that are somewhat factors. But at the end of the day, when you're really talking about somebody, there's a few big life decisions. One of them is maybe where you're going to college. You're going to be connected to that place maybe for the rest of your life. You may find your mate there, your wife, your husband in college. I mean, it's monumental. So when it really gets down to somebody saying War Eagle and yes, and signing a scholarship, it's a family is not just agonizing over playing time and being at your university. They're agonizing over safety is the topic of this morning. They're agonizing over, can we make ends meet? Is this the proper investment? And are these the men and women, and is this the support staff that we want growing our son, the investing? So we've put all this time into our greatest gift, and we want him finished off properly these next 2 or 3 years. And they want to move on to the big leagues. So how do you where's the place that's going to finish off taking care of our boy, finish him off being a man, and even help him get to that next level? So those are the questions we're trying to really, the boxes. Can Auburn baseball check that to a high level of family and parents, that we could be a path on that journey to making all this happen?
Kevin, I want to ask you, and Dr. Andrews comes up, I believe, on Wednesdays and works with the baseball players and his staff, but that's a powerful recruiting tool. You've gotten to know Dr. Andrews. I mean, he is a figure on the sidelines, as Dr. Houston was, with his blue Oxford cloth, bow tie, Irish country hat, khakis, and Cole Haan loafers with Madras socks. Dr. Andrews with the white hat from Homer, Louisiana, Homer, not Homa, Houma. But wow, how powerful is that to get inside of that man's mind? Because when he's on this show, he makes E.F. Hutton look stupid. He's so smart.
Well, the neat thing about getting to know him through our work with Coach Safely is how much he truly cares about young people. And we see him on NFL sidelines. We see him on college football sidelines, but he is on high school sidelines. I can tell you, he is very much involved in youth sports through his grandsons. And if you really want to get him started, ask him about his sons coaching his grandsons. He's not always a fan of their approach in different ways, but he really does have a heart for kids and a heart for keeping them safe and keeping them in the game. And really, that's the bottom line with Coach Safely. Again, we want to keep them in the game. We want to keep them in school. Because think about it. If you sustain, and I use this example of my older son when he was in 7th grade, the last game of his 7th grade baseball season, stealing second base, goes in head first, shortstop's knee hits him right here. He sustained a concussion. He missed a good bit of the last month of school, had to sit in a dark room, couldn't play video games, couldn't watch television, had the things that a normal 13-year-old would love to do. He was shut down because of that concussion. And thank goodness that his coach, again, this was a school coach, so he's following the regulations of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. He knew right away, and it was the first inning of the last game. And he asked me to come in the dugout and check on him after he came back, after he stole second base and got hurt. He said, "You need to look at him. He doesn't look good." And my first thought, idiot dad, being competitive. It's my, again, last game of the season. I want him to keep playing. And I asked him if he feels like he can keep playing. The coach said, "No, we need to shut him down. He might have a concussion. And you cannot take the risk of sustaining a second concussion before a first concussion either has been diagnosed by a medical professional," and they're the only ones that can do that, but also cleared then afterward by a medical professional. And that's the only way you should put an athlete back in the game if they have had a concussion, is when they've been cleared by a medical professional. So it hits home with me. And again, his love for kids and for keeping them safe is genuine, and it's real, and it's great to see.
Yeah. Coach, thinking about this too with baseball, it's rising in popularity for a lot of reasons, but I think about the East Cobb League up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ginormous.
Huge.
Yeah. And what it is in Memphis, baseball is huge in Memphis, but when you start thinking about recruiting, where name the, I don't want to hurt any city's feelings or state's feelings, but name me the top 5 areas for producing college baseball players in America. I think one of them is pretty obvious.
Yeah, just, every school's got their own little footprint, right? We have a footprint of Alabama, and when we're geographically located, that automatically brings Georgia into our footprint. You look historically at Auburn, and in any sport, Georgia's been huge for that footprint. And I would say the Panhandle would be a huge piece of this. But if you're talking about baseball in our sport, I take my Auburn hat off for a minute, just amateur baseball. I mean, I got to go California, Texas, and I think Georgia is right there. If you just look at Major League Baseball statistics over the last 10 or 15 years of draft picks, state of Florida, and then we're adjacent to that. There's been some amazing players. We had 1-1, just 5 or 6 years ago with Casey Mize as the first pick of the entire draft. But, I got to go California, Texas, Georgia, Florida. So probably climate and absolutely population is a huge piece of it. But the Georgia and Alabama and the SEC footprint have absolutely, put out some amazing baseball players.
Yeah, and Coach, I know you got a tight schedule this morning. Your team is 12-1-1. If not on TV or streaming, I love listening to Brad Law and Paul Ellen on the Auburn Network. Sitting there with the fire going last night, watching SEC basketball, listening to your game against Southeast Louisiana. You're winning a lot of close games, and got to ask you, it doesn't matter who you're playing, you always want to win, but there's good baseball all over the place, isn't there?
Yeah, you say we're 12-1. So is everybody else in the SEC. I think every team in the league is at least 3 or 4 games over 500. We're in our
so what? Now what?
Yeah, you better be 12-1, huh, Coach?
I better be. Yeah. But, it all starts next weekend when, we'll get on a plane and head to Fayetteville, Arkansas, the last time we played in Omaha last year.
Yeah.
But really, there's only one game to play. I'm trying to limit confusion with the roster. Every day is a World Series for our program, and we should approach every game that way, whether it's Southeast Louisiana, whether it's LSU, whoever we're playing. We're trying to figure out how to play one style of baseball and how consistently can we play that. So we're not trying to confuse, distract. We're absolutely trying to play good baseball. And we have 20 new players, so over half of our players are new. So we're continually in a cycle of, we got 20 new guys to teach and get implemented and get, as put in as piece of a team and try to create some synergy along the way. So we're in a good place. It's been good, a little bit warmer early to start. Of course, March comes, we probably got a ice or snow event coming here as predicted in the South. I agree, Kevin. I just jinxed myself.
Don't tempt fate, Butch.
Everything's going great, and we're getting to play 2 today. We looks like some weather in the Southeast is going to be a little tough. You've seen our whole region kind of move up to double headers today, and so we'll get to enjoy a Sunday, but we're going to have a long day of baseball today on the plains and around the area.
Yeah, that's an Ernie Banks day, Coach. You get to play 2.
That's right.
Well, and how, what, Coach, and I was looking at something here I sent you about Beverly and Guy May that have Biddy and Bose there in downtown Auburn, and Joe May. They're season ticket holders right behind home plate, and they really want to meet you. So, and they support the May family is to Auburn what the beach is to the state of Florida. They love Auburn. 3 of them are veterinarians, Dr. May, Guy, Waller. These more and more people are moving back. Kevin and Frank, you're starting to see Auburn as a retirement community because of East Alabama Medical Center and all. And now a $30+ million expansion has been announced to Plainsman Park. Before you go, and I want to, if you can come back from the break here in a minute for just a couple of more minutes. I know you got to be off, and I'm going to keep you on that schedule. But what do you need from people in terms of support? $30 million is a lot, but in comparison, I know I talked with Yancey Porter a lot at Ole Miss, was on last week with you. They're putting another $40 million. That's $128 million they've put into Swayze Field, and they turned away over 3,000 season ticket holders. That's what you want, isn't it? That kind of problem.
We want revenue, drive-by, and those type of problems. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, so when I come back, I want you to, if you can, lay out maybe some priorities that you have in a couple of minutes that we have left. We're going to take a quick break. We've got Kevin Scarbinsky, one of the great writers, the Birmingham Lead, LEDE, Auburn coach Butch Thompson, been to 2 of the last 3 College World Series from Coontail, Mississippi, and Frank Duffy, the Shenanigans down at St. Patrick's Day in New Orleans. Right after this quick message. Coach Thompson, before you go, and I know you got a big day ahead of you. You got Ernie Banks. Let's play two. What are you looking for? You talk about drive-by, but I also look at your season ticket holders, and I look at the people in the outfield that are starting to tailgate and start to get that atmosphere. You're a Mississippi guy. You know what it's like at Mississippi State, the dude. And Auburn, your location for the stadium, it's incredible. And you've got a medical building attached to the baseball stadium, but it is an incredible park, and you got a great product that goes on the field. But tell fans, we got a lot of people texting me, and they're going, I love Coach Thompson. What can I do to help him directly? What does he need?
Like you always give me the opportunity, Rob. If somebody would just email me and have a conversation about any of their desires with a program, with facilities, etc., it's Butch Thompson at auburn.edu. I'm sitting on the first floor of that building that you just mentioned. And Kevin, it's been a joy to get to sit with you this morning, not having that opportunity before. And Dr. Andrews visits this building. You have no idea how much I've enjoyed Pitch Smart from a pitch count standpoint. You're talking about the safety piece. What a legacy this man's leaving, and how important it is. I think this morning I realized how fortunate I have it being in this setting, being an SEC coach and having all these people around me to help in the case of any adverse event to happen. But then making me think this morning on a youth level how that's not probably buttoned up the way it needs to be. So thank you for your cause. Dr. Andrews is an amazing man. Facilities is an arm race in the SEC. And what I've tried to do as a steward of our program, not get caught up in like, hey, we got to look like LSU. We got to look like Arkansas. We got to look like Ole Miss, Mississippi State. We need to look like the best version of ourselves. And where are we growing? And so these things are going to be revenue pieces for us and our fans because the demand is there. We've had season ticket sellouts 3 years in a row, and we're not expanding just to trying to keep up with the Joneses. Our expansion is out of demand, and we are selling more than ever, and it is time for us. We have shown the capacity that we need to expand and offer some different amenities for our fans. You know, you go to the Braves and you got like 19 different seating configurations or opportunities how you can, take in a ball game. Yeah. And we have, a beautiful 4,000 seat stadium with chair backs, but some of those amenities and other pieces that you see around, it's time for that to land on Plainsman Park. And the timing is perfect. You got a good product on the field with good student athletes. You have a demand from our fans. Our student body has done an amazing job. And, it's all coming online at the right time for us. You mentioned Biddy and Bose in the last segment. My wife, Robin, is an amazing human as well. She's on the board of the Eagles program. And Biddy and Bose, they hire, our Eagles students. And those are students that are at Auburn University and some other campuses. We started this 5 or 6 years ago where somebody that would have something, a birth defect or something going on that wouldn't allow them maybe to be in a normal classroom, to have people around them to allow them to go to school and pursue an Auburn degree is amazing. And everybody should go by Biddy and Bose and get them a cup of coffee because there's a good message behind it, and they are absolutely doing some amazing things, and they are really cherishing and honoring our most amazing students that we have here at Auburn University. So thank you for all the topics this morning and let me be with you guys.
Hey, man, look, let's do it again next week. We really appreciate it. I know next week's going to be tough. You're going to be up in Fayetteville, but you're right. Just absolutely love your insight, and Auburn couldn't be luckier. I've had about 20 people say not only should Butch Thompson be Auburn's ambassador, maybe he should be America's ambassador for baseball. But stay at Auburn, please. And whatever salary contract you need to get, Auburn, open up the bank. Keep Butch at Auburn. Anyway, but thanks so much, and we'll be listening. But last question, is baseball to you better on the radio or on TV, or turn the TV down and turn on the radio?
It's better in person. With,
other than that,
popcorn, hot dog, and
however you can smell that fresh cut grass.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I always say, Coach, there's no better sport to attend in person than a baseball game. But anyway, have a great day. We'll be watching, listening, and keeping up with you, and look forward to our next.
Boy, well, thank you guys.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care, Coach.
Thanks, Butch.
Bringing Tompkins back on, and Kevin, I had to cover this because I was supposed to be on in the first segment with a casualty up in Nashville. 3 days in a row being on the show with Mitch Davis, a young correspondent from Sidelines. I think that Kentucky loss hit him hard, and he said, I got to recover to go to the games today. But Dave Tompkins used to be one of the top guys, I guess the top guy at Churchill Downs up in Louisville, the Kentucky Derby. Lives in Beaufort, South Carolina now, and grew up in Birmingham, didn't you, Dave?
I did, in Mountain Brook.
Yeah. So he grew up an Alabama fan, Kevin, with new John Forney. John Forney, voice of the Crimson Tide of Alabama, Bromberg. The Bromberg.
The voice of the Tide.
Yes. Brought to you by Kevin Scarbinsky of the Birmingham News. And Kevin, I know you're from Pottsville, PA, but how about a Bromberg's Rolex for 25 years at the Birmingham News? But hey, we were talking a little bit about the Derby before Coach came on. And Kevin, you're a gifted writer, but you're a leader. You've got that alpha personality, which is great for CoachSafely.org. We talked about with Frank. Frank owns a bunch of horses. Dave, lives down in South Carolina, but is a Derby and Masters junkie. But we're talking about the safety and the reverence that the people of Kentucky and the horse people have for the horses. As a writer, Kevin, have you had the opportunity to cover the Derby? I mean, what have you not covered is what I want to know.
Well, I have not had the privilege to cover the Derby, but a little known fact about my career at the Birmingham News, and Dave will remember the Birmingham race course.
Oh, yeah.
Started as a horse track.
Yeah.
And I want to say the second year, maybe for one season, I was the turf rider for the Birmingham News.
Oh, wow.
Knew nothing, next to nothing about horse racing other than watching the Kentucky Derby.
Hey, did it help you? Did it help you picking any exactas?
Wait a minute. But I spent one day chronicling the entire day of a horse that was racing that evening. The horse's name was Sensitive Sally. I wrote a 100-inch feature story about Sensitive Sally, and she ended up winning the race that night. And it is the longest story I've ever written in which I did not interview the subject of the story. Let me tell you, though, it was fascinating. And the love that the people on the backside had for those horses, for that horse in particular, was eye-opening for me. And I saw it again. I did it for about 6-8 weeks where I covered the race course. But I was really struck by how much those people who cared for those horses actually do care for those horses. That really stood out to me.
We said that earlier. It's a stretch where you really see it.
It's one of the challenges of the sport, and if you compare horse racing to football, is that the principal athlete in horse racing can't talk, and that they're only on stage for 1 year. They're as a 3-year-old, and I think it's really incumbent upon the storytellers. And I'm a total amateur, wannabe storyteller, but to tell the story about the connections, the trainers, the jockeys, because that's where the real magic is. Yes, the horse wins the Derby, and that's what's most important. But it's all the years before and after that one specific 2-minute race that I think that's the story that needs to be told more and more and more, in my opinion.
The bottom of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kevin, as a writer, when you go to something like the Masters or the Kentucky Derby or the Iron Bowl, College National Championship, College World Series, whatever, I like to use this expression because it was presented to me in a training course when I used to work for A.G. Edwards 30 years ago. Don't hit people with so much information. It's like trying to take a drink of water from a fire hydrant. But how do you, if you go to the Derby, how do you start breaking it down? Or any big event, because again, the Birmingham News, sadly, almost 2 weeks ago, put their last printed version out. And Dave's from Mountain Brook. Frank grew up in New Orleans, but I
hate to hear that.
Yeah, and
I hate to hear that.
That's not good long term. I'm not going to be surprised if this stuff doesn't go full cycle. We don't go back, but I love having a printed version in my hand, highlight, double underline, put in parentheses. I still indent 5 spaces to the right, Kevin, even when I text somebody, because I think about Brother Stephen Schonhoff in 10th grade at one of the LaSallian brothers at Christian Brothers High School. Because if you didn't and you missed words, you might be doing push-ups on your knuckles. But there you go.
Well, I still have
there's a place in Crestline edition. With Birmingham connections know about Crestline Village, and back when I was a kid, they had the Red Streak edition, and you'd go to Crestline Pharmacy to get that, the Birmingham News, and that's an indelible part of my childhood. And God, that breaks my heart to hear that there's no more printed version.
Well, yeah. I can't have on my desk a framed copy of Pete Finney's article about when Archie Manning played his first game and beat the fearsome foursome of the LA Rams when they came in when I was a kid in that stadium. That's still on my desk today. You can't put it on the glass anymore.
Yeah, it's not the same if you print it off the internet, is it?
Yeah.
No.
And you know what? Let me tell you guys. One of the one of the nicest moments, and it's occurred, throughout my career, is when someone, and remember when people used to actually write letters, when they put them in an envelope and they would put a stamp on it and they would send it to you. And sometimes they would do that. They weren't happy with something I wrote. But, when people would tell me, my mom or my grandma, that article you wrote about this Iron Bowl, about Bo Jackson, about Sean Alexander, about whomever, she clipped that and put it on her refrigerator.
Sure.
Right.
That's the greatest compliment you can get as a writer, that it meant so much to that individual that they cut it out, as you said, Frank, or they framed it, or they put it on the refrigerator. And that's special. And so not to have a newspaper, in Birmingham, I can still remember when I started as an intern in 1984 in the sports department. They hired me full time at the end of that internship. People used to line up on football Saturdays in the fall.
Yep.
They would line up at about 10:30 at night when that first edition would roll off.
Oh,
There would be a line of cars as far as you could see. Ready to get that paper hot off the presses to read what Clyde Bolton and Jimmy Bryan and Al Van Hoos and Charles Hollis and all those giants had to say about the game that was played that day.
And they were giants. They were giants. Wow. The Birmingham News fielded such an amazing array of writers. Just so true.
Yeah. And Kevin, and you're in that list too. I've seen it. I remember Charles Hollis. You remember Charles? When I was a freshman at Auburn, I was majoring in journalism, and David Housel would let me work in the sports information office. I lasted all of 5 games in the press box because as a freshman, all my pledge brothers over in the corner in the drunk tank down there at Jordan Hare, he said, "Rob, you cannot cheer in the press box. What's it going to be?" I said, "David, I love you, but I got to be with my pledge brothers."
Yeah, you listen as well as I do when you tell me I can't say horse bleep.
Yeah. But I think about getting to be my senior year of high school. David Housel let me work up there, and Coach Dye's very first game, Auburn played TCU. Ron O'Neal, barbecue, 5'10", 245-pounder from Walker County High School up around.
I remember that game.
Number 44 in a tearaway jersey. My friend Ray Glidewell somehow got on the sidelines and got a photographer's pass with his Instamatic Polaroid, camera. He was a member of the media, though. But anyway, I'll never forget, we got Lionel James, number 6, Ron O'Neal, number 44, tearaway jerseys. I was working in the press box, just being around all those writers. You talk about being among the Redwoods, being at Monument Valley in Utah, being, on the top of Mount Everest. That was so blanking cool. And the old days, the photographers would go in the little circular thing and it would rotate around. You develop your film. What I loved the most about it was the respect, the reverence for the game. And I got the left side of my head chewed off for making a comment about one of Auburn's rivals. Beat him. He goes, David Housel, again, you don't talk about the rules. We need that. We got to get that back. And everybody says, well, who needs the newspaper? I'll tell you something. We're a lot less literate of a country when we don't read every day, Kevin. That's why everybody out there listening, and we got a lot of listeners, subscribe to the Birmingham Lead and read what Kevin and these other legit journalists are writing. It's like lifting weights with your brain, swimming, biking, stretching. Otherwise, you're stuck on stupid. That's my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could go off on a rant here for the rest of this show and about 5 more shows on that subject.
Feel free to go ahead. It's Go Off on a Rant Saturday, brought to you by Eleanor Maynard, Thompson Realty.
Hey, 1 second. Hey, Rob, before we go to break, I got a special treat for you. I don't know if I'm in tune yet. Okay. He doesn't know if he's going to be in tune, but I bet you he's pretty damn good. Hang on 1 second. Just give me 5 seconds.
No bad words, please.
We got to pump off the bag.
I love it.
Top of the morning to you, fellas. Top of 10 packets there from New Orleans.
County Donegal.
I'm telling you what, it will be a great day in New Orleans. And Kevin, again, see, like Frank appreciates it. Dave does. My kids, your kids, when you read, it just opens up your mind. But continue to go on because we're about to go to a break. But I want to get into this because our theme, thank you, Maury Gaston, John Hearn, Robert Durham, history, traditions, and heroes. How do you know about them? Like you go into someone's office, they've got framed newspaper clippings on the wall. Hey, that article you wrote about my son 38 years ago, we still have it framed in the den. And we got to be real careful in this country of sweeping all that aside and sweeping journalism aside. What are we replacing it with? People that think they're journalists that don't care about getting it right. We're going to talk about getting it right after this quick break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Tell you something real quick about another one of our sponsors. We're proud to be associated with Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty in Memphis. Just joined the Sidelines team. Some things to know about Eleanor. She's going to come on the show in the next couple of weeks. We're going to introduce you to her. 4th generation Memphis residential realtor, 3rd generation Hobson realtor, top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in 2022. If you live in Memphis or are moving to Memphis, have a need to buy a house, sell your house, call Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty. It is a turnkey operation. Her team will get started. You will look at yourself and say, the best decision I ever made was hiring Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Now, Kevin, let's go on about what you were saying, because Dave knows it, Frank knows it, but also we have the intern, William Billy Ray Valentine Halliday, on yesterday with Bo Carter and me. He's
Capricorn.
a freshman writing for the Plainsman at Auburn. They've got him up in Nashville covering all the games, and Bo gets on there with him. And whenever we have the other writers like that on there, he's soaking this stuff up like a sponge from y'all. So the thing that frustrates me the most is, and Kevin, you're not old, you're young, but you know, when someone says, "Oh, I've been doing this a long time, nobody cares what I say," the hell they don't. And I'll tell you why. It lasts. It makes an impact on people. The books that we read, you can always tell someone's intelligence or lack thereof by the vocabulary and the words they use. I'll never forget that lesson of just reading. When you read something, you learn it. If you hear it on TV, you try to remember it. Kevin,
yeah, that's well said, Rob.
The ball
and
and run.
You just made a great point, and looking at Frank, watching Frank also makes the point. You got to get out. You got to go where the action is. You've got to get out and meet people and talk to people, develop relationships. I had a blast last week. The Alabama State High School basketball championships were here in Birmingham, Monday through Saturday, and I got to be the television host on Alabama Public Television on the last 3 days. So I did pregame and between game shows for 18 games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And sorry, Dave, Mountain Brook lost in the 6A championship game to Buckhorn. Oh, and speaking of which, guys, remember this name, Caleb Holt from Buckhorn High School in Alabama, the Buckhorn Bucks, 6'5", 190. Scored 65 points in the 2 games, the semis and the championship game, had 32 rebounds. He's a ninth grader. He's a ninth grader. Everybody in the SEC's already offered him, and he's only in ninth grade. This guy, one coach said he's generational.
He probably has his first NIL contract.
Yeah, remember that young man. If he continues to develop, he could be one of those greats to come out of Alabama. But I'm going to stay on the basketball theme in developing relationships. I went to a Samford basketball game. Bucky McMillan, former Mountain Brook coach, won 5 state titles there, now doing a great job at Samford. They won the SoCon this year, shared the regular season title. I go to a game, and who walks into the locker room, Frank, but Trendon Watford, who, of course, had a great career at LSU. Now he's in the NBA with Portland. His brother, Christian, who played at Indiana, who hit a shot to beat Kentucky at the buzzer some years back, and their dad, Ernest. I've known Ernest Watford. He's a police officer in the area for a long, long time. He invited me when Christian was a senior. He said, "Do you want to come watch Christian commit to Indiana?" I said, "Is that even within rules?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to come watch, of course." So we went to the Shades Valley gym, and Ernest and I are standing in one end, and there's Tom Crean and his assistants, Benny Seltzer and Rashawn McLeod. Rashawn played at Duke. He was an assistant to Tom Crean at Indiana at the time. And they started talking, and all of a sudden, the 3 coaches started jumping up and down and screaming like they were at Mardi Gras, and they just won the lottery because Christian just said, "I'm coming to IU."
That's incredible.
It's moments like that, and then years later, you walk into Samford, and there's Christian and Ernest and Trendon, and they're shooting around after the game, and you just get to say hello to them, renew acquaintances. It's relationships. It's getting out there. It's being there. That's what's so important. That it's so easy now to see something on television because everything's on television now, every event you can imagine, and write about it and form an opinion about it. But if you don't have the relationships, if you don't get out and sit down with people in their offices one-on-one, get to know them get to know you, they get to know that they can trust you with information.
Do you think I would have had the same experience not sitting with Doug Dean and Jordan Hare when LSU went in and played last year? Sitting with my boy Doug. If I'd have been staying home in New Orleans or Atlanta watching on TV, absolutely not. And that's what I love about being out in the stadiums. Or like Dave, when we talk, Dave, having 160,000 people live at the Derby. Yeah, it's a great TV event. But if you got it live and you feel that rush of the crowd, there's nothing like it. That's why we love sports so much. We love being there. We're part of it.
Yeah,
could you imagine?
You don't get those chills. I mean, you literally there were games at that high school tournament that went right down to the wire. And you get chills. I mean, and especially that's a great thing about the high school championships and football in Jordan Hare Stadium this past fall, and then basketball here in Birmingham last week. It's like the old Iron Bowls, entire communities come and fill one side of the arena or the other.
Yeah.
And every play elicits a response. One side's cheering, then the other side's cheering. And there's something special about that you don't get from watching television, Frank. Right on with that.
Yep.
Yeah, and when you go to the games and you watch, if not everybody can go up in the press box, but what I don't like is putting the press box over in the corner, putting them out to pasture. Listen, the media that you are part of, Kevin, there's integrity, there's honor, and so many people today, because of social media, they can get a microphone and splatter whatever amount of garbage they want up against the wall, hoping it sticks. But a true journalist, trust but verify. Get the facts. Let your readers, let your listeners make their decision. You tell the story. Too many times today, people have an agenda, and they want that's what they want to happen, and they're injecting their opinion into it. As an officer in the military, Dave, you know this. You're a West Point graduate. It's about accountability. I'll never forget. Yeah, I'll never forget covering a story at Fort Benning one time at Ranger School, and the platoon leader told me, he said, "Rob, let me tell you something. One of my guys goes out in town, gets in trouble, gets in a bar fight, gets a DUI. It's my that's on the line. It's accountability. A true grit journalist or writer like Kevin knows that what he says carries a lot of weight, and we need, again, people that are unread. What is it with a great quote my friend David Aquadro sent me? The man who cannot read, the man who can read has no advantage over the man who cannot read if he doesn't read. I mean, that's as true as it gets.
I'm gonna weigh in now if I could. On reading, you can't respect and embrace tradition if you don't read. And tradition. Our good buddy Maury Gaston, who I hope is still listening, who has the PhD in tradition. And going back to basketball, it's generational. When I played basketball at Mountain Brook way back when, I sat on the bench, but a guy that played on the court was a guy named Gil Berman. And Gil's nephew is now a player for Auburn.
New York.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Gil, way back, Gil was a hell of a basketball player. I mean, beat me. And we were pretty good, and we went up against Charles Barkley's Leeds teams a few times. And so it's just tradition. And then walking around, I live here in Beaufort, and I'm trying to finish a novel. And part of why Kimberly and I moved here was that I would get the inspiration from Pat Conroy to finish my novel.
Oh yeah.
And I walk to Pat's house every morning. It's like 2 or 3 blocks away, where he wrote his first 2 books. And it's that walking around, it's telling the story and people reading the story. To me, that's what's essential to our society. And I think it's even more important in technology, even though in my day job I invest in technology companies. But I think it's the storytelling and the reading that's so important and sadly missing.
Yeah. And Kevin, you look at all the stuff that's going on right now, clickbait, quick 8-second sound bites. It's what everybody's going for. But what's great about reading is, if you could get inside of the mind of Michelangelo as he painted the frescoes, laying on his back for years at age 36 at the Sistine Chapel in Rome. I've been there. And you look at it and you go, how did somebody do this? Well, it's like my dad at the beach would traditionally read an 800 to 1,000 page book about the czars or something, but he would read it. And my mother reads at 88 still at least 2 books a week. I mean, the vocabulary of someone, you can tell someone that exercises. Of course, 75% of it's diet, but you can tell people that work out and exercise. You can tell people that read. What Frank is doing, what Dave talks about. When I was a television reporter, I used to say, immerse yourself in the story. You want to find out about what the Rangers are like? Spend 4 days out there with them. Eat 1 meal a day, an MRE. That's why God gave us Tabasco sauce, because Dave, you know what? those things have a 3-year shelf life. And I remember getting out there the first night at Ranger School. I went out there and I opened up a large bag. I took with me a large bag of Cheeto Puffs, several Snickers bar, and a jar of peanut butter. And I opened up the Cheeto bag and it went poof. And one of the RIs came over there and he said, Browne, those guys have been out here for 9 days. At this point, they can smell anything. He goes, I hope you have enough for everybody.
And Rob, I'm sure you were named Agent Orange by the time you got the hell out of there.
I was, but Kevin, they go back like Dave is saying, like Frank is saying, and that's what's so cool about having you on here, because there's accountability when you write. Words are like bullets. You can't take them back. But the proofreading, there's a lot of times nowadays, I tell you what I love. I love Jason Caldwell being on the show, Inside the Auburn Tigers. Jason will not comment on something or anything that he does not do his homework on and do his due diligence. Like me with my clients. My team will not recommend investments for people until we've means tested and back tested it through the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, it's easy to do well when the wind is at your back. It's different. As a writer, that's what's so important. When you write something, it's like a ruling from the Supreme Court. It's serious.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and social media has changed so much about communication in general. And it's interesting, my younger son, Cannon, he's a high school senior. He's trying to make his college decision right now. And he keeps writing. Whenever they ask him to write college essays, if they ask about issues in society, he writes about social media and the dangers of social media. And it has created an immediacy in which people feel like I have to express every opinion I have on every subject there is as soon as I have it. And that's a dangerous thing, even for so-called professional journalists. You feel this need to rush out there with an opinion, especially if you're a columnist or a commentator. And sometimes you just need to tap the brakes and say, wait a minute, what do I really know about this situation? The Brandon Miller situation at Alabama is a perfect example of people judgment.
Great point.
Running out there ahead of the facts with hard and fast opinions that some people are unwilling to change as more information is uncovered. And maybe they're doing their own reporting, maybe they're not. I don't know. I can't speak for anyone else. But if you're a journalist and you're going to comment on that situation, this is a tragic situation. The young woman lost her life. You need to be ultra careful about what you say, what you're implying, what the words you use, the phrases you use. You know, accessory to murder is a serious charge. So don't say that someone is an accessory to murder unless the police have said that person is an accessory to murder.
Especially with a motherless child who one day will read those words.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So you're condemning. So it does not do any justice to the memory of Jamia Harris to condemn people who do not deserve condemnation for playing a role in her killing. I mean, that is just as you don't find justice by committing injustice. Or as Martin Luther King said much better than I just did in his letter from Birmingham jail, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice.
Yeah,
everywhere.
You're right. Let me say this real quick.
Written comments about it. The social media comments, guys, have been just beyond ugly.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, this is a correction on what I just said from David Aquadro and Tom Martin. The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. That came from Brother Joel, one of my teachers at Christian Brothers High School, Brother Joel McGraw, Fratre Scholarum, LaSallian brother. And Brother Joel is as great a man as I've ever met in my life, but the power of the written word is incredible. One such writer, Doug Dean, AU Dose, on here with us right now. Doug, jump into this rugby scrum of journalism on this Saturday because this is fun, man.
Good morning, Doug. And by the way, Rob, after 3 miles of walking down here in a barley corn infused walk, I'm going to like your saying much better than that saying.
Here we go.
Duffy,
morning, Doug.
Good morning. What the hell is that get up you're wearing?
Oh, this is my working Irishman. Now look, hey, between Browne, Tompkins, and Dean, even my Polish brother from another mother, Scarbinsky, has to be feeling Irish this morning.
Well, I hope I don't get in trouble here, but you look like an Irish pimp.
he didn't get to wear Dickie Brennan's outfit. Dickie's in a much more regal outfit, right?
You know, it's funny. Dickie's family house is literally 1 block over on 3rd, going towards St. Charles. I was there for Mardi Gras, and I had dinner at Burns. I had a steak at Burns with Dickie on Tuesday night. He happened to be in Tampa, and after I called the Tigers game, we went over to Burns and sat at the bar and had a big old steak.
Hey, you got to go to La Uzi's. That's where Doug Dean
La
wants.
Uzi's. Dude, let me tell you
Dean and I
something.
want to go there.
Hey, my Italian friends, it's their day too, man. I'll go down there and share some stuffed artichokes with them and some Italian sausage, ziti. Absolutely. Hey, by the way, in New Orleans, there's such an infusion of Sicilian food. It's fabulous.
How about Irene's in the French Quarter? I love that place.
Well, which one did you say?
Irene's.
Oh, yeah, Irene's is a great place. Yep. Good, real good place. Good date night place.
Say something real quick before we go to the break. As a teenager, I read the Birmingham Post-Herald, Birmingham News at Dad's drugstore in the evening. George Will and William F. Buckley were my favorite for me. So was Hugh Sidey, who wrote The President.
Oh, my God. Don't get more gassing going on these.
To be a good writer, be an active reader of good writers. You can quote me, and that is Maury Gaston, Sylacauga, Alabama. Right back after this on the Rugby Scrum of Journalism. All right, let's get going here again. Bottom line, we all, Doug Dean, you're part of it. You're there in Birmingham where Kevin is.
Top of the morning to you, man. Have a great March.
Here we go. We have the only sport show with a live participant in the St. Patrick's Day parade in New Orleans. And what a fortuitous move on the part of the parade organizers to have it on a Saturday before this upcoming Friday will be the 17th.
Yeah, God forbid in New Orleans we waste a work day.
Yeah, that's right. You don't want to do that. But
Right.
Doug, jump in here with us because we're talking about, writers and the importance of the sports writers. And I'm not sure what happened. I think we threw out the babies with the bathwater. People might have had their opinions about the political stuff, but the sports section, but we need writing on all levels. But Doug, you're gifted at that. You don't like me to praise you, but I can't help it. But you get it, and Kevin gets it, and so does Dave. We all do. People judge you by the words you use, and when you take it from your head and write it on paper, I just think you learn better.
Well, Kevin and really everybody on here could attest to this. My favorite quote about writing is thinking, isn't it, Kevin? And it's just, but I'm old school enough that I'm a really mediocre in-person oral communicator. I'm working on that. But when you have to stare at the screen, and I don't know if you experienced this, Kevin, but in some ways, if I'm writing something really important, I even like to see it on physical paper. Something psychologically happens, at least with me, to look at the final product on paper and then edit that. But Rob, I still need to enter the Kevin Scarbinsky school to cure run-on sentences. It's just one of those.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
But I got to say, Duff sitting there. By the way, Duffy, when you were being raised, did your mom have the notion of your outside voice and inside voice? Well, the rest of us are inside, so would you quit screaming at us, Duffy?
Hey, let me tell you. Hey, all I know is that voice has got me behind a microphone of the Detroit Tigers, and I'm loving life. My outside voice works fine.
Most of us want to be Duffy when we grow up, but so in the spirit of Duffy's attire, a sartorial attire there, I got to tell you my award-winning. I've won not once but twice. I've won a nice bottle of Irish whiskey at a St. Paddy's Day festival with this joke. And I think it's a close call as far as the G to PG rating this show lives by. You hadn't heard from the FCC yet, have you, Rob?
Pow! Hey, if Mildred could make it on Feinbaum, anything's possible.
All right, so
there ain't enough Irish whiskey for that.
Yeah.
Put this one in your back pocket, and you too can win a festival. You got to work on the Irish brogue. So Seamus and Patty were getting up in years, and they had been lifelong friends. And one day, Seamus says to Patty, "Listen, Patty, I have just one wish when I die. Would you pour a good bottle of Irish whiskey over my grave?" And he said, "Sure, I'd be glad to, but you don't mind if I pass it through my kidneys first?"
That's right. Let me do some filtering for you. Got to do some filtering.
Well, Browne with an E is one of the 14 tribes of Galway.
I know.
I don't see a lot of Browns with an E here in America, but I went to over to Clifton and Roundstone, Ireland, out there at Galway Bay years ago, and that Browne with an E was everywhere.
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, the great bumper sticker, God made grass on the earth so the Irish wouldn't fall off the globe. I mean, you just gotta,
this concrete's hard. I'm telling you right now.
It really is. Kevin, let me.
Hey, Rob, wait. I want you guys to know now, as Frank correctly pointed out, I am not Irish. I am Polish. I'm proud to be of Polish heritage. In fact, someone on Twitter called me a dumb Polak the other day, and I thought I'd gone back to 1974 watching All in the Family. But I want you to know
with the meathead
that from first grade to 8th grade, I attended St. Patrick's grade school in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And as only could happen in a small town in the Northeast, the church, St. Patrick's Church, which we attended, was right next door to the Yinglings Brewery. The Yinglings Brewery. And let me tell you, I don't care how much you love beer, the brewery itself does not smell good. It is not a pleasant experience to walk by that every day on your way to school and church.
The paper mill.
Yes. So
that man was a logistics.
That's my Irish history.
That man was a logistics genius.
Well, let me say this about.
How are you?
I got to say this about Poland, and I think Dave, you would agree strategically. America has no stronger ally, more strong of a nation than Poland. In fact, just a few years ago, we almost moved all of our troops out of Germany into Poland. But St. John Paul II is from Krakow.
There's no more inspirational place in the world than Poland. I mean, do yourself a favor and go to Warsaw, go to Krakow, hear the story of the Jewish ghetto, the Warsaw Uprising, go to the museum, the Warsaw Uprising. I mean, it is... And learn about their entire history. Wow, it's
do the research. Hey, do the research on the free Poles who fought in World War II on the English and in the French armies after they were taken. Some of the bravest guys you've ever seen in battle, the Poles.
And one other thing, real quick,
inspirational people in the world, in my opinion.
From St. Michael's Catholic Church in Auburn. My son, his freshman year in 2017, I was at Mass. Kevin, I was talking to Father Herbert out there. And Monsignor Skonecki was there. He's down in Mobile now. But Father Herbert said he was from Poland. And he said, I was born, he goes, in 1986. He goes, 2 million Poles locked arms around the country in prayer. John Paul II. He goes, 31 years later, I was born. I was like, wow, if that ain't a message right there, man. But that is an incredible place. I got to say this. Yeah.
Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I wanted to say, I want you to get back in here.
Since Kevin proudly presented his ethnicity, his heritage, and I hate to be a name dropper, but I got to meet and have a private audience with Pope John Paul II back in early days. And he hails from that great country.
Yep, from Krakow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fish for Krakow.
One of the most beautiful city in the world.
Yeah, and it is an incredible place. And Kevin, I got to ask you, as a writer, again, we're talking about this. I think you can see Doug, Dave, Frank, me. We're starved for great writing. Now, you can get it online. You can with the Birmingham Lead and all, but I'm not going to be surprised if we don't go full cycle. Sports Illustrated. We all grew up reading when Sports Illustrated, there's nothing like waiting for something to come in the mail. I used to order anything from J&M Bookstore or Anders or the University Bookstore just so I would have the UPS truck bring something from that 36830 zip code in Auburn, Alabama. I mean, I'd order one time. I ordered something. The box cost more than what I ordered. My mother, are you an idiot? How'd you get my credit card number? I said, you were sleeping.
There you go.
Have y'all even talked basketball this morning, Rob?
Oh yeah, we've covered a lot in that first hour. But Kevin, this is what I wanted to say. SEC tournaments going on right now. Chronicle the growth of basketball and what Mike Slive's speech back in 2014 meant to the future and where we are today about we've got to put a better product on the table.
Yep.
Everybody get serious with basketball. That was a powerful statement.
Well, yeah, Mike was a longtime basketball guy. That's how I first met him when he was commissioner of Conference USA.
Yeah.
He'd come to UAB basketball games, and I'd sit with him. We'd talk basketball. He was on the selection committee. Of course, tomorrow is Selection Sunday. So I got a lot of great insight from Mike about that. But, yeah, they hired people specifically at the SEC office to help them schedule more strategically to be in a position to earn at-large bids to the NCAA tournament. And for example, what Vanderbilt's doing right now in Nashville is pretty inspiring, beating Kentucky yesterday, moving a little higher on that bubble. So we'll see if they can beat A&M today. That might punch their ticket. I'm not sure. And what I'm wondering, Doug, is if Vanderbilt, if they win again, could Auburn's bid be in jeopardy? And I know that we had, in fact, at the Birmingham Tip-Off Club, where I'm the MC for the meetings, we had Greg Byrne, Martin Newton, the Sanford athletic director, and Dr. Charles McClellan, the SWAC commissioner. 3, not 1, not 2, 3 members of the selection committee are from the state of Alabama, guys. So don't tell me this is a football-only state. We love basketball here too, but they all said they don't compare teams within the conference. So they're not going to say we can only have 6 or 7 SEC teams, so it's either Vanderbilt or Auburn. But they look at everybody, equally beyond the conference. But I'm really starting to wonder if Vanderbilt wins today, if Auburn might not be in a little jeopardy. Their resumes are very similar. Auburn has a much stronger non-conference strength of schedule. That's their advantage right now.
Kevin, you're going to make me be an Aggie fan today.
Gig 'em.
God
Don't
forbid.
do it. Don't do it.
Kevin, why wouldn't you? And I don't have the bracketology or Lenardi sheet in front of me, but why are you? Is your premise that there's a fixed number of SEC teams that they would select?
No, they don't. No, they do not go into it with any number from any conference. And, they say that they do not look at it that way. And that's the interesting thing. They also made the point that, look, you got 12 people on that committee. So everyone puts a different emphasis on whether it's the Ken Palm rankings, the net rankings, obviously head-to-head play is important. Non-conference scheduling, though, seems to be something they all care about because that's something that you do. You control that. You don't control who you play in your conference, but you control who you play, for the most part, out of your conference. Now, it's difficult for some teams like UAB, which is playing in the Conference USA championship game tonight. It's hard for them to get teams to come to Bartow Arena. South Carolina did this year and got spanked. UAB also spanked Georgia this year. So, but for the most part, you control your non-conference schedule. So they want to know if you challenged yourself. And at that meeting, last year, for example, Greg Burns said, I won't name the team, but there was a team last year, closed really strong, had a great run in their conference tournament, didn't get in the NCAA tournament, and a lot of people thought they should have, but their non-conference strength of schedule was awful. And I said, Greg, you can go ahead and say Texas A&M. We won't tell anybody. And he said, you're pretty perceptive, Kevin. So that was A&M's problem last year. I could keep Vanderbilt out this year. I don't know.
It was a travesty. A&M being left out last year was a travesty. I just, everything I've read, Kevin, is that, I guess all of this is fluid, but that it does make me a little concerned that Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama, is on the selection committee. But so we love Alabama, Mr. Byrne. If you're on the show, if you're listening to the show, this is an amazing Crimson Tide team, who, by the way, is I think it's a lock that they'll be sent to Birmingham, and I can't wait. I'm nice enough as an Auburn guy. I'm going to the midday sessions at Legacy Arena to say I've been to March Madness in Birmingham, and I'm assuming you agree, Kevin, that Alabama will be given the primetime evening slot either that Thursday or Friday.
Well, that's interesting. You would think that but the committee itself does not decide the order of games. They don't decide the start time of games. Television does that. They give them the bracket, and then they go to work on slotting the game times. Obviously, they know where everybody is. So there'll be 4 games in Birmingham next Thursday, 2 next Saturday in the second round. And guys, fun fact for you. Again, Birmingham, football capital of the South, right? Traditionally, Birmingham has been the host to the NCAA tournament 10 times.
Wow.
That is more than any city in the SEC footprint that has not hosted a Final Four.
Way back when I was a senior at West Point, the regional finals were in Birmingham, and Villanova, coached by Raleigh Massimino, punched their ticket to the Final Four. And that year, the Big East had 3 teams in the Final Four. Georgetown with Patrick Ewing, St. John's with Chris Mullen, and Villanova with Easy Ed Pinckney. And Villanova went to cut down the nets. My prediction is that in the next 10 years, the SEC will put 2, if not 3 teams in the Final Four.
And I'm going to go one better. My prediction is in that time, either Alabama or Auburn will win a national championship in basketball. It could be Alabama this year. And by the way, guys, go back to 2018 and you count regular season and tournament championships. You know who's won the most SEC championships combined? Alabama has 3. Auburn has 3. Kentucky has 2. Tennessee has 2. LSU has 1. Again, we're a basketball state too.
Yeah, well, it is. And all I can say is Alabama is also a lucky state, because was it close to this date back in several years ago, somebody in the Crichton area of Mobile said there was a leprechaun. Who all see the leprechaun? Say yeah. No, Kevin.
I'm going to be seeing quite a few of them in about 5 hours.
Yeah, Michael Jordan, our good friend, just crossed over the bridge there, the Africatown Bridge there in Mobile, heading out to Baldwin County for a big meeting. And I just think about how big basketball really is. We undervalue basketball. And you talk about Arkansas. Now, I got to ask you, Kevin, is Arkansas going in? I mean, they are 9-11 now, and they were 8-10. Now they're 9-11. You talk about a tough schedule, that net ranking. That's the big part of it. And hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. I suggest people read. But Kevin, let us know what you think, and let people know we got a minute left, how they can follow you.
Yeah, check out, as you mentioned, the Birmingham Lead. It's a new online subscription product. It's like a newspaper delivered to your inbox every day. Go to BirminghamLead, LEDE.com. It's every day. I write twice a week on Sundays and Thursdays. And I will be writing a lot about basketball over the next month. So check it out.
Awesome.
Kevin will not bury the lead. I can tell you that.
No, he will not. One last thing from Dave Quadro and Tom Dorian. A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits. I think great words of wisdom. Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, Doug Dean, Kevin Scarbinsky, Coach Butch Thompson in the first hour. Thank you all so much for sharing your Saturday with us. We appreciate it more than you can imagine. That's what we're here for, folks, to try to make you think, okay? So I hope the SEC gets in as many teams as possible, and I think the Big Ten with 14 teams is going to get 18 bids is what I'm hearing so far.
And they'll all be gone by the second weekend.
Yes, they will. Hey, everybody, have a great weekend. Go out and help people. We'll be back Monday. Until then, we are out of here. Thank you.
Sláinte.